Today's webinar. My name is McKay Allen. We're excited you're here for another one of the Log My Calls Marketing Webinar Series webinars. Thanks so much for joining us. We're excited to have Phil Frost with us today from Main Street ROI. I'll introduce Phil more in a moment. But first, just a little background on who we are, why we do these webinars, how it all works. Log My Calls is a call tracking and call analytics platform. So we do essentially three things. First, we tell marketers which ads, campaigns, and keywords generate phone calls, so we can tell you which campaigns are working and which aren't. We also record calls, and then we analyze the content of those calls using speech recognition technology. So we're able to relatively easily extract data from the calls, like lead score, whether or not there was an appointment set or a reservation made. So you can get data about how your phone calls are performing and how they're actually translating to business. So not did the campaign generate calls, but did it generate business and revenue for your company. So that's what we do. We work with different businesses across North America, small businesses, enterprises, agencies, and a variety of others. And then why do we do these webinars? So we host about 2 webinars every week, and we have marketing experts in from all over the world, essentially, to talk about various marketing subjects. You can see today we have a webinar with Phil Frost. Tomorrow we have a webinar with Bernie Borges, the CEO of Find and Convert. And then next week we have a webinar with InfiniGraph and Jeff Knight from The Offer Machine and Colin Howard from Has Offers. So it's going to be a fantastic month of October and into September in terms of webinars. And we do this because they're really useful marketing topics, and we're able to get really top-flight marketing experts to present the content. And then, selfishly, it gets us in front of marketers, right? It gets people talking about how awesome these webinars are and how awesome Log My Calls is for hosting them. So our hope is that you enjoy them. You can come to our webinar library up here, logmycalls.com/webinar. You can watch recordings as well as register for future webinars. So thanks again for your time. A couple house cleaning items before I introduce Phil. We encourage you to ask questions on today's webinar. Type those into the question bar, and I'll read those to Phil at the conclusion of his presentation. And then also the webinar is being recorded. So we'll send you that recording tomorrow morning in your inbox. You'll get that as an email, the recording itself. And then finally, we also encourage you to take a look at Log My Calls, wander around our site a bit. We do have a fantastic product that allows you to really track the effectiveness of your marketing. So please wander around the site a little bit. I'll talk a little bit more about the product at the end. So with that, I want to introduce Phil Frost. He's the co-founder of Main Street ROI. They're a fantastic company that kind of does, they do training and marketing consulting, but they also, in some cases, manage marketing for their clients. So they're just marketing experts across the board for small and medium-sized businesses. They work with hundreds of companies. And we're really, really excited that Phil's agreed to join us. He's done several webinars with us, and everyone is really, really good. So he keeps agreeing to do it, and we keep asking him back. So we're excited that he's agreed to join us again today. So Phil, thanks for taking the time. I'll give you control of the screen here, and the floor is yours.
All right, perfect. Let me show my screen. Did that work?
Yes, sir. Looks beautiful.
All right, perfect. Thanks, McKay. Really appreciate the kind intro. And I want to thank you, McKay, and Log My Calls for having me again. Really love doing these webinars. And as McKay said, we're going to be talking about the local SEO Blueprint. And this is really a version of one of our training courses called the Local SEO Formula. It's kind of the scaled-down version. But I'm going to walk through each of the key steps to get you set up and optimized for local SEO. Just got to get my computer working here. So McKay already went through the housekeeping with the Q&A, and I always like to recommend turning off distractions. Definitely turn off any browser windows, email, cell phones. I actually like to put all the electronics away and take out a piece of paper and a pen, go old school, and actually take notes. I find I get the most out of these presentations that way. So here's what we're going to cover. First, I'll talk about why local SEO is so important and why you should actually take the time to walk through these steps I'm going to talk through today. I will go through these 7 steps to rank #1 in Google's local results. At the end, I'll give you the local SEO checklist. As McKay said, we'll open it up for live Q&A. And McKay, if there are any urgent questions, feel free to stop me along the way.
Will do, Phil.
So McKay gave a kind intro. I'll go really quickly here. Again, my name is Phil Frost, co-founder of Main Street ROI, and we provide digital marketing services as well as consulting and training like this webinar that we're going to do today. And my thought leadership in this industry has been featured on a lot of different websites like Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And I always like to include a picture of my cute little daughter there. She's now 20 months, almost 21 months old now, and that's my wife. It's actually Erin's birthday today. That's my wife, Erin, and my daughter, Violet. All right, so why is local SEO so important? Why should you even care about these steps? Here's a quote from Ed Parsons of Google. And he said about 1 in 3 of the queries that people just type into the Google search bar are about places, so about locations, and they're about finding information about those locations. And that has to do with local search. And your prospects actually prefer to search. You can see here 86% of people are using the internet to find local businesses, and 72% prefer to find information on local merchants via search, and that's from a Web Visible survey. So as everyone on the line I'm sure knows already, the days of going to your old Yellow Pages book are pretty much over. I got one in the mail just the other day, and that immediately went into the recycling bin. So people are not using the Yellow Pages. That's starting to dry up. People are now going online, whether that's on their desktop or their mobile phone, to find local merchants. And 82% of online local searchers follow up via an in-store visit. So not only are they searching, but after they do that search, they are highly likely to actually go visit you in your office or in your store. So because of that trend that we're seeing here, with the way prospects are trying to find businesses, Google responded by making basically putting businesses front and center in the search results. And here's just an example. If you search for just the word sushi, not too long ago, you would actually get web pages all about sushi, and you can see at the bottom there Wikipedia. But now Google knows people are not really doing research on sushi. They actually want to find a restaurant, so they're putting the businesses front and center right there in that black carousel, they call it. And then at the bottom right, you can see the map. I'm here in Manhattan, so you can see my search there brought up a lot of Manhattan sushi restaurants. And then here's another search for a New York City dentist, and you can see again, upper right corner, we have the map for all the local dentists here. And then very prominently, this is actually right on the page where it used to show websites. Now it's showing local businesses front and center at the top of what's called the organic search results. And just so we're clear, everything above the organic search results and to the left of that map, those are advertisers, and they are paying Google to have that position. And when somebody clicks on one of those ads, those businesses pay Google for that traffic. And you want to contrast that to local SEO. If you're showing up in the local results, you actually do not pay a penny anytime a prospect clicks on your business. So it's completely free once you are ranking in the local results. Here's another example, hardware store near me. That's a good search for somebody looking for obviously a hardware store looking for some supplies. And you can see in this example, the results are taking up the entire search results there. Those are all businesses, and then to the right is the big map. And obviously, don't forget about mobile. There's a stat out there that's showing that mobile traffic will actually surpass desktop computer traffic by 2015. So this is coming up very quickly. More and more of your prospects are going to their mobile phones and doing these searches. And 3 out of 4 mobile searches trigger follow-up actions. This is from a Google and Nielsen report in 2013, and they saw that those actions are sharing information, visiting a store, or actually making a purchase. And 95% of mobile users access locally relevant information. So a lot of these local searches are looking for local businesses. Here's same exact search, sushi, on my mobile phone. You can see the map and then the businesses right underneath that. And here again, hardware store, you've got the map and the businesses right below it. And now here's a critical distinction, and I already mentioned this. So again, not too long ago, Google was not showing businesses in the results. They were only showing websites. And with local SEO, these are actually not websites. And this is, if you're familiar with SEO, we're actually not talking about SEO for your website. We're talking about SEO for what's called your Google Plus local page. And I do have an asterisk there because a lot of the SEO factors that improve your website rankings still do improve your local rankings. But I do want to be clear that what we're talking about here is not necessarily ranking your website in Google. We're ranking your Google Plus local business page. That's a critical distinction there. So now we'll dive into the 7 steps to rank #1 locally. All right. Step #1 is keyword research. So before we get into optimizing, we want to make sure we're going after the right search phrases. So what exactly are your prospects typing into Google to find your particular business? The tool I always recommend is Google's Keyword Planner tool, and I have the link there. You can actually just Google, go to google.com and Google Keyword Planner tool. That'll be the first result. You can click on that. And it works similar to a thesaurus. You're going to have a search box for this tool, and you can type in a keyword that you think your prospects are searching. Just type that right into the Keyword Planner tool, click search, and then Google will tell you how many times that keyword is searched every month. And it'll also show you additional similar phrases. So if you typed in New York City dentist, for example, it'll come back to you and say how many times that's searched every month, and it'll give you additional phrases like New York City dental office, for example, and show you maybe that's a better keyword because it's being searched more often. And as you're doing your keyword research, you want to follow these 3 criteria. The first one, this is really important since we're talking about local SEO, we want to go back into Google, put that keyword in the search, and make sure Google is in fact showing local businesses in their search results. And unfortunately, we don't control Google. They determine what's going to show up in their search results. So you want to make sure that you're optimizing for a keyword that actually has a shot to get you to show up. And if they're not showing local businesses, unfortunately, there's really nothing you can do in that case. You really want to pick a different keyword. Second criteria is that it's obviously relevant to your business. It's just going to be nearly impossible for you to rank for anything that is not 100% relevant to your business. And the third criteria is that the keyword does in fact have what's called search volume, and that's just the number of times it is searched each month. That might be 10 times a month, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, whatever that number is. You do want to make sure that people are in fact searching that, or else that's not a good keyword to go after. All right, step 2 is pretty straightforward. You want to obviously set up and then claim your Google Plus local listing. So again, we're not talking about your website. We're talking about a Google Plus local page. And here's the URL. You can go to plus.google.com/pages/create, and you'll see a screen just like this image below here where it says choose business type. And there's 3 different types. There's a storefront, service area, and brand. And what we're really talking about here is either a storefront or a service area. And the key difference is whether or not your customers come to your location. So if you have a store, obviously they're coming to your physical location. If you have an office that customers and clients come to, then it would make sense to have a storefront. But as you can see here in the examples, a service area would be a company where your customers don't come to your location. I recently hired a contractor to do some work in my apartment. That is an example of a company that has a service area. I'm not going to the contractor's office. He's coming to my location. The other example here is a plumber or a taxi service. So really just think about whether or not customers are coming to you or you're going to your customers, and then choose the correct type of business. And the next step is very important, and this is a factor in the ranking algorithm here. It's whether or not you do have a verified location. And you can see the example, that's actually our page, where they have that little shield with a check mark, and that is an example of a verified local page. There's 2 methods to get verified, and this is, you'll see it right away when you go to that URL to create a page and pick either storefront or service area. You'll fill in your business information. It's very straightforward. Business name, address, phone number, business description. And then the final step you'll see is to either have Google call you or have Google send you a postcard to your location with a PIN number. And it's just a basic PIN number. I think it's a 5-digit number. You'll get that code. You enter it into the form, click submit, and you're instantly verified. And now that basically tells Google, hey, this is a legitimate business. That is in fact their phone number. We just called it and proved that. Or this is in fact their address. The information is accurate. And now you are the owner of that listing, and no one else could come in and make edits to that page. That's also very important. Okay, once you've got that page set up, we want to update it, make sure it has all the correct information, and then there are also some updates to your website. So my recommendation is to complete all of the available fields that Google gives you. Basically, just go down to the second bullet. Basically, Google is using your name and what are called categories to determine if you're relevant for a particular keyword. So we talked about in step 1 doing that keyword research, and if you're a dentist, there's going to be a category for dentists, for example, And if you have that category, that's going to make you more likely to rank when somebody is searching for a relevant dentist type keyword phrase. So Google's using both categories as well as your name. And then the other fields aren't as important for ranking, but they really, once somebody actually goes to your business page, they're going to start reading more about you, and that's going to increase trust from your prospects if you have a completely filled out profile. For example, Google gives you by default an image for your logo and an image for the main banner of your page, and if a prospect goes to your page and they just see the default images, that obviously does not instill much trust. Doesn't really look like a legitimate business in that case. So I highly recommend going through the steps, making sure you edit your logo, put your correct logo in there, put a nice relevant image in there, fill out the descriptions, and just make sure all the information is accurate, and that's mainly for prospects landing on that page, giving them confidence to actually call you or come to your store. All right, there are some edits that you want to make to your website because, again, we're not ranking your website, but a lot of the SEO factors that improve your website rankings do, in fact, impact your local rankings. And the first one is what's called your homepage title. And if you're not familiar with the title of the page, this is an example right here of the HTML code. Actually, there's a typo that I'll fix. Sorry about that. Okay, so that if you're familiar with HTML, then you'll see this in the HTML code, the title tags. And then in between there, I wrote, this is your title. That would be the title of the page. You want to include your relevant keyword as well as your city and state, and that will improve your rankings for people searching in that particular location. And when I say your home page, that's because in your Google Plus local listing, you can add your website. So you'll add a link to your home page in your Google Plus local listing, and then Google will go and check out that page. And if you have the title of that page optimized for your keyword and your geographic location, that is another signal to help boost your local rankings. And the second critical edit is to have contact information on your website. Generally speaking, I recommend you have a Contact Us page, and that's pretty much best practice with websites and website structure. Typically a link somewhere in like the upper right-hand corner of a website, it'll say Contact Us, and on that page you want to list your name, address, and phone number, and that needs to match the same name, address, and phone number that's listed on your Google Plus page. And when you take this a step further, you can use what's called schema.org, and this is getting a little bit technical. And what I would recommend is you just have your webmaster do this for you. It's actually not hard. It's just adding a little bit of HTML to your contact information, and it allows Google to very easily find your name, address, and phone number and match that information to your Google Plus local page. And I also included a link to Google's tool where you can actually verify your contact page to make sure that that schema is set up correctly. Okay, step 4. At this point, we have the Google Plus local page set up correctly, and we have our websites edited and set up correctly. The next factor is what's called your page authority, because if somebody searches for a New York City dentist, Google will look in their database and find all of the relevant Google Plus local pages, all the relevant businesses, and then they're going to rank them based on their authority. So now we're going to talk about how to increase your authority so that your business is ranked ahead of your competitors. And the biggest factor in your authority is what's called citations. Now, a citation is simply a mention online of your name, address, and phone number. And the abbreviation, if you do any research into this, is NAP or NAP. You may hear people talking about that. And again, that's why it's important to have a contact page with your name, address, and phone number listed, because that information is then compared to your Google Plus local information, as well as any other pages online that mention your name, address, and phone number. And when you think about it, it makes sense. Google needs a way to confirm your information is in fact accurate and it's up to date. So businesses move around, they change phone numbers, and Google needs a way to know what information can they trust. What they do is they just look online, and if you have, let's say, 100 other citations or other mentions of the exact same name, address, and phone number, that's a pretty strong signal that your information is accurate. And as you see here, I wrote consistency is critical. The opposite is really the issue. If you have inconsistency, so if your name is spelled differently, or you have different addresses listed online or different phone numbers listed online, that will kill your local rankings. So really the goal here is to have consistency throughout the internet with your name, address, and phone number. In citations, the analogy, if you're familiar with website SEO, is getting other websites to link to you. So if you're familiar with traditional SEO, getting a website to rank, you know that it's important to get other websites to link to your website. And with local SEO, citations are similar to links. You want to get a lot of relevant and authoritative websites to mention your name, address, and phone number, which is a citation. And as you get more and more of those citations, that builds up your authority, which moves you higher and higher in the rankings. So really quickly, how to get citations, I'm sure you're wondering. I recommend everyone go to moz.com/local. That's a great tool. It's completely free. I have no affiliation with them. Just a really good tool to use to search and make sure you have consistency with your name, address, and phone number. That tool will show you if you have multiple listings with maybe duplicates or inconsistencies. That tool will show you that, and it will also show you some of the top citations that you should get, and it actually includes a link to those websites to go get an account set up. Another tactic that you can use is just go to Google and search for local and niche directories. And here are just two really simple examples. Dentist directory, do that search and you'll find a lot of directories online for dentists. And you could also do your location plus business directory, like Boston Business Directory, and of course that'll pull up a lot of directories relevant for your location. And finally, you can use a service provider like Main Street ROI. There's a lot of companies that will do this for you, and that is something that we would do if we did work together. Basically, on an ongoing basis, the goal is to get, again, more and more citations Typically, these are business directories, and as you get more of those over time, that boosts your rankings. All right, step number 5 is to get ongoing reviews. And really quickly, how to get reviews. There's really no magic bullet. I recommend if you have any type of email exchange with customers and clients and patients, then have an email template that you can send to everyone, or at least the ones that you know are satisfied, and have a link with instructions to go leave you a review. So that's pretty easy because they get that email. They're obviously online at that point, and they can just click on a link, and that link can send them straight to your Google Plus Local business page, and on that page is where you want them to leave you a review. And this is another free tool from the company Whitespark in Canada, and this is a review handout generator. You just complete a form, very basic. I think it's just name, address, and phone number, and you click submit, and it creates a handout that you can then print and give to customers when you're actually in person. So that's another great way to do this. You could have some kind of printed postcard that you hand everyone once you're done with the service, and then that has directions for them to go post a review. So I know everyone's thinking there's no way my customers will leave a review, or very few will. That definitely is true. There's no way to force customers to give you reviews. I do not recommend you post fake reviews, and I do not recommend you post reviews on behalf of your customers. Those are all tactics that can get you into trouble down the road. I really recommend you stay squeaky clean with this, and just make sure. It really just comes down to asking and having a system to ask every single customer or every single satisfied customer to leave you a review. Okay, step 6 is all about securing your rankings. So now we've gone through all 5 steps. We have top rankings. Excuse me. These are some of the newer factors in local SEO, and that's because Google Plus is a social network. So these social network signals are starting to play more and more of a role in SEO. So the goal here is to engage with your prospects and customers on Google Plus. That means posting content. If you have a blog, it's as simple as taking that blog and then go and repost it, or post a link to that blog on Google Plus. And again, when I say Google Plus, I mean your Google Plus local business page. On your website, I recommend including a link to your Google Plus local page, and naturally over time you will start to get more and more followers from prospects and customers who are on Google Plus, and you'll start to get more shares and what are called plus ones, and those are similar. If you're familiar with Facebook, those are similar to likes. And naturally over time, no business is immune to this. You will tend to get some negative reviews or not so positive reviews, and I always encourage businesses to reply to that as soon as possible, and that is really just damage control at that point. You want to show anyone who stumbles across that negative review that you do care. You care enough to reply to that, address the situation, but obviously you don't want to throw any fuel on the fire. You want to be careful how you address it, but you do want to address any negative reviews. And finally, content does help local SEO rankings. if you are using SEO in your business and trying to get your website to rank, and now trying to get your local SEO rankings, I encourage you to have a blog. A lot of benefits for SEO here, and a lot of benefits for local SEO as well now. And what you can do is create articles. Again, I would recommend blog articles, and you can focus those around geo-specific topics. So writing an article, if you're in New York City, something specific to New York City would then give you a little bit of a boost in terms of local SEO for searches in New York City, as well as videos, images, and you can even run special deals in your neighborhood. All right, step 7 is to track your return on investment. Really important to set up this tracking. I recommend you do this actually first, but if I put it first, most people want to get to the nitty-gritty details and don't want to be bored with tracking, but this really is super critical to get set up right away before you launch a campaign like SEO or local SEO, so that you can in fact track how that performance is improving over time. So a couple ways to track online traffic in particular, and then I'll talk about phone calls and in-person visits. So first, with online traffic, you can create special offers with coupon codes and special links to your website. Google Plus actually gives you a dashboard, and they call it their Insights report, and that'll show you views over time. You want to see that your views are trending upward. That would indicate that your business is showing up for more and more searches. You again want to see trends going upward for clicks. If people come to your store or your office, they will tend to request driving directions. I do that a lot when I'm searching on my mobile phone. I'll click a business and then click for directions, and that shows you exactly how to get to that business, so that you can actually see how many people are requesting driving directions each month. And then engagement comes back to what I was talking about before, where if you're posting content and people are engaging with that content, you can actually measure that over time as well. And finally, I recommend every business get set up in Google Analytics, and you can track traffic specifically from Google Plus, and that will show you all of the people that are coming from your Google Plus local page over to your website. And then if you have what's called conversion tracking set up, you can see how many people are coming from Google Plus and then completing a contact form, for example, or scheduling an appointment, or requesting more information about one of your products or services. So the other thing you want to definitely track is phone calls, and if this makes sense, any in-person visits. And I'm sure McKay will have a lot to talk about this topic. What I would recommend is what's called dynamic number insertion, or DNI. And all that means, if you remember McKay's intro, Log My Calls tracks the sources of your traffic, and then you can have the ability to record and grade those calls. And the way they do that is with dynamic number insertion. They could actually have a different phone number for different marketing campaigns like SEO, and show you how many calls came in from SEO versus your Google AdWords campaign, for example, if you're doing any type of advertising. Now, with that said, a lot of confusion with phone call tracking and local SEO, and it's important to note here, you never want to use a tracking number for your citations. So if you're trying to get more and more citations, and it does make sense, you think, hey, I want to track if anyone calls me from these different directories, but you want to resist that urge. You want to always have consistency. As you remember from when I was talking about your authority, it's really important to have consistency with your name, address, and phone number. So if you try to use a tracking number in your directories, that immediately kills your consistency, and that will kill your rankings. So never use tracking numbers in your what are called citations or business directories. You really only want to use what's called dynamic number insertion. And again, if you have any questions about that, I'm sure McKay can talk more on that. And finally, to track any type of in-person visits, if you do any offline marketing, you're familiar with promo codes or coupon codes, and that you can do that online as well. And you can have special promo codes and post those to your Google Plus page, and then if someone comes into your store with those codes, you can match that back to your local SEO. All right, so here's a recap. This is the local SEO checklist. We talked about step 1, keyword research. Step 2 is actually getting set up and then taking that next step and claiming your listing. Then you want to update your page. I recommend completely filling out your profile with all accurate information. Make sure you choose all the relevant categories. The more relevant categories, the better. Because again, Google is going to use that to show you for relevant search phrases. And then editing your website, we talked about the title of your homepage, as well as making sure that you have a contact us page with your name, address, and phone number. And we talked about using schema.org, which is a little bit technical, but you can just shoot that over to your webmaster, and that person could definitely get that set up. It's very straightforward. Step number 4, building up your page authority. That's primarily what we're talking about here, is getting more and more relevant citations. Talked about getting ongoing reviews, then securing your rankings, and finally tracking your return on investment. So if you need additional help, you can contact us. I'm just giving you our phone number here, 646-470-3753. You can also email support@mainstreetroi.com. If you have any questions after this webinar, feel free to contact us. Or if you want, we'll contact you and just type your info into that Q&A box, and I'll make sure that we get in touch with you as soon as possible. All right, McKay, with that, let's open up to Q&A.
Yeah, let's do a few questions and answers. That was great stuff. Really, really good stuff. Okay, so we got 2 questions actually about Google Plus. Says, I'm not sure if it's still valuable. There were some changes with authorship. Can you just kind of give us a brief background of how Google Plus works in terms of rankings, why it matters, and some of the recent changes that have taken place with it? I know that's a lot to do in a short period of time.
Sure. So there have been a ton of changes. When I first got involved with local SEO, it was when Google introduced Google Places. People on the line might remember that. Google Places then went through a complete overhaul, and they basically launched Google Plus and then migrated Google Places over to Google Plus. Created a lot of problems with my business in particular. I had set up everything on Google Places, and then it got migrated. So there's actually still some issues because of that migration, but to hit on that first point is Google Plus still relevant? It absolutely is for local SEO. It just so happens that's where Google decided to put Google Places. For better or for worse, that's where it is, and because of that, as I said, this is with local SEO. That's what Google is showing in the local results. They're showing those Google Plus local business listings. So that's why it's really important to get that set up. To touch on authorship, that is a completely different topic, not really related to this, more related to more general SEO and blogging. So if you're writing a lot of content and blogging, you can set up what's called authorship. And it used to be the case where your picture and name would show up in the search results, and that was great. But Google, for whatever reason, shut that down, and there's no longer authorship. But there is still something called author rank. But again, that is a whole other topic and kind of another side of SEO for anyone that's doing a lot of content creation. I do recommend you do a little bit of research into author rank. Sorry, McKay, did I touch on everything on that question?
Yep, absolutely. That was
okay.
Great. Let's see here. Okay, so Vince asked an interesting question. I think this is something that a lot of people have questions on. So if you're not a quote-unquote local business, how important are citations for you? Do you need to be listed in Google Plus Local? Do you need to have citations if you're not a quote-unquote local business? Maybe you're a B2B company, like your company or ours. How important is that?
I recommend any business that serves local customers, patients, clients, and would benefit from local customers and clients. I do recommend you get set up. It's completely free. There's really no harm in it. The way it would not have value is if the keywords that your prospects are searching do not trigger local results. The most common example is like a national e-commerce business. It doesn't really make sense, and it's not really appropriate to set up a local SEO campaign for a e-commerce website. But it does make sense for our business. We're B2B, and we work nationally as well as with international clients. We're not limited to local business, but we do have a advantage by having a Google Plus Local page, because if someone's searching locally and Google is showing local businesses, that actually puts us in the running to get in front of that prospect.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. And then the last one, and then we'll conclude. What do you see coming down the road? Actually, no, let's go with this one here. Lisa, I was going to switch, and then I switched the last second here. Okay, so let's see if you understand what this question's talking about. Lisa says, regarding NAP and AP, I have my own website with my true office in AP, but I also use AVVO. AVVO lists a different number for my office so they can track calls. How does that affect my NAP? In other words, is having at least a name and address, 2 out of 3, helpful? And I'll comment on that after you're done, Phil.
Yeah, unfortunately, that inconsistency is a problem for local SEO. So that goes back to my point where I was talking about call tracking and having different numbers in other directories that can have a negative impact on your local rankings.
Yeah, that's my sense as well, is that if you include call tracking numbers on citations, we've long counseled not to do that because it confuses Google. The best way to use call tracking is to use dynamic number insertion on your sites or your landing pages, where it's just JavaScript that's switched out dynamically and immediately when the person visits the site. So that's what we recommend, and encourage you to do that. So, Phil, any final thoughts before we conclude?
I think we touched on everything. If I didn't get to all the questions, definitely put your contact information in. We will follow up. If not today or tomorrow, then definitely early next week. Yeah, and if you have any questions, you just want to email us, feel free to email support@mainstreetroi.com.
Great. Fantastic. So thanks, Phil. Thanks for the time. We'll send you guys out the webinar recording, so watch for that in your email. And it'll be great. So everybody, thanks again. We appreciate it. Phil, thanks for taking the time.
Yep. Thanks for having me, McKay. And I will give a plug for Log My Calls. We do work with them, with some of our clients, and can't recommend them more highly. Excellent customer service, excellent product, and yeah, even if you have a question about call tracking, feel free to email me, and we can schedule a call with McKay as needed.
Great. Well, Phil, thanks again. We appreciate it. Everybody, thanks for attending. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.